I have been a parent for 46 years, and I've worked with hundreds of families and children over the years in childcare. And what I see now is this trend towards the gentle parenting, the permissive parenting, the child-led parenting. I am seeing the results of those types of parenting today in our schools and our society, and it's very concerning. And then here comes gentle parenting, which I think was a backlash to some of the people who have been raised by parents who were very authoritarian and maybe abusive in some situations, from what I'm hearing from followers. So they went too far the other way. And I call common sense parenting a combination of authoritative and gentle, because I think some people went too far. Common sense is positive, effective parenting. It's not yelling, spanking, abusive in any way. It's you're the parent, you're the leader of the family, you are in charge.
Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. So has anyone ever noticed that today's parenting philosophies are just not quite working? They maybe are a little bit too permissive. We have parents who want to be their kids' friends, or they don't want them to ever get their feelings hurt or experience failure or logical consequences. And what I think is happening is that we're creating a generation of kids that really are not accountable for their actions. Now, I am here today with the incredible Pam Palanza. Did I say that correct, Pam?
Palanza, you're right.
Palanza. And I have been following her on Instagram for quite some time because we are both baby boomer grandmas, okay? And we have come from a different generation of parenting. And what Pam has been bringing up over and over again is common sense parenting. And Pam, I am so excited to have you be able to meet our audience today. So a little bit of background on Pam. And some of you may have already been following her because she's got a lot of followers already, but she's a mom, a grandmom, an early childhood educator. So I'm telling you, she's been working with them since they were itty bitties, right? She's currently a parent mentor specializing in common sense behavior management for neurodiverse children from the ages of 2 to 12. She now just has a new incredible resource for you, and I'm going to provide the links for that. It's called Pam in Your Pocket. Pam, we're going to talk about that before we finish out, which is a combination of all of the matter-of-fact parenting tips and strategies for parents to access real quick. So Pam, welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. I am so happy to have you here. And Pam, you came out with this this coined phrase, which is probably not as coined as I may think it is, but for common sense parenting. And so I'm just kind of curious, what does that mean in this day and age, Eddie? And why did you come up with this common sense parenting?
All right. First of all, let me back up and tell you, I focus on neurotypical children. You said neurotypical.
Oh, okay.
Neurotypical, yeah. Now,
Okay.
Not to say that some of the things I teach do not work with neurodiverse children.
Okay. Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I had neurodivergent here. Okay.
That's okay. So here's the deal. I have been a parent for 46 years, and I've worked with hundreds of families and children over the years in childcare. And what I see now is this trend towards the gentle parenting, the permissive parenting, the child-led parenting, which I sent you a reel about earlier today. We're going to maybe talk about a little bit. And I am seeing the results of those types of parenting today in our schools and our society, and it's very concerning. And to me, common sense parenting, I was raised not with authoritarian parents, but authoritative.
Right.
They were in charge. They were the parents. They ask you to do something, you do it. You don't question it. They don't care how you feel about it. They're like, go clean your room. I never once said to my dad, well, let me tell you how I feel. He didn't care. He's like, go clean your room, right? You respected your parents. And then here comes gentle parenting, which I think was a backlash to some of the people who have been raised by parents who were very authoritarian and maybe abusive in some situations, from what I'm hearing from followers. So they went too far the other way. And I call common sense parenting a combination of authoritative and gentle, because I think some people went too far. Common sense is positive, effective parenting. It's not yelling, spanking, abusive in any way. It's you're the parent, you're the leader of the family, you are in charge. And there you go.
I love
That's
it.
yeah.
And I was parented in that same generation as boomers, where although I tested my mom. I was definitely tested my mom. My mom was a yeller and a swatter because I mean she would chase me with stuff and I would run away. I mean, I was just terrible. But I tell you, if dad raised an eyebrow, it was over. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just how it was. I didn't go there. But I did mess with my mom. Mom, I love you. I'm so sorry. because my mama would continue to tell me, you wait till you have kids. And then, of course, those of you who know me know that I was blessed with my son, Kyle, which was the ultimate payback, because this is why I do what I do today, because of that dear boy. Okay. So really, when we have, it's at finding that common ground. And I agree.
Correct.
There are parents that were probably too abusive. My husband's from the South. Switches were a thing all the time. Actually, he had to pick his own switch. And, that was just not something I knew was not going to be okay with me. But then I also knew that, when you try to be your child's friend and you are not, you've lost all authority, and that's not going to work either. It may be in the beginning, but when they start getting to those tween and teen years and they think that they've got a voice and they can tell you what to do, that's where we've lost it. So it really is finding that common ground, and which is some of the things that we talk about at the Parenting Blueprint is we need to know what our values are first. What are our values and what are our expectations? And then our parenting needs to align with those expectations. And they may be values such as, compassion and gratitude and honesty, right? You know what I mean? And accountability. And if these are the things and characteristics that are important to you, then your parenting needs to reflect that that's what we are developing in our children. And I say this all the time, Pam, and you can kind of chime in on this, but discipline is not punishment.
I was just thinking that thought.
Yeah.
It's so that because people use that. They think discipline is, well, let me just back up for a second. I was raised in a household, never yelled at, never spanked, never anything harsh. My father would sit us down on the couch and talk to us. How do you think that made the person feel? Why did you do that? Would you want someone to do it to you? And that's how we were raised. Right. That's how I raised my children. Okay. Because that's how I was raised. Most people parent as they were parented. Doesn't always mean it was right. Doesn't always mean it was effective. And I also, I did a real nut just last week on this. I lived in Tennessee for a short period of time. I'm from Pennsylvania, so we didn't have switches. Right. I moved to Tennessee and I had a family childcare home, and a mom walked in with a switch and hands it to me. And I said, what is this? And she's like, this is a switch, you beat them with it. Her 3-year-old and her 18-month-old child. And I said, ma'am, I don't switch anybody. And number one, I wouldn't do it. Number two, it's against licensing regulations. Right. That blown away, just totally blown away that she expected me to switch her children. So I think what I see a lot happening is parents don't know how to parent. And they resort to the yelling and the spanking because they think that's discipline. Right. And it's not. Discipline is teaching. Right. Punishment, inflicting pain, whether it's physical, emotional, verbal, that's punishment. That's not discipline.
It's not. Discipline is a discipline of self-discipline. Okay, right. I've heard that said. And it's teaching self-discipline. And right. We do that through setting boundaries and expectations. And I say, because I come from the human behavior and understanding personalities and why kids do what they do, and when needs are not met, we'll experience behavior because that's their communication. We tend to want to address the behavior, but if we don't get to the why, and so even though I was parented a certain way, that particular style may not work with every child because their needs are different. So we'll just leave that there. But it is the discipline of teaching self-discipline. As I say, as they grow, they need to be pruned so they can be stronger, in their style, rather than just grow wild, which is what I'm seeing a lot of, the growing wild. And then they grow wild and then parents want to prune. And now we got a hot mess because we need to repair and restore what we hadn't done in those early ages. And it really is teaching that self-discipline, even from an early age. And so you talk about why children actually want their parents to be in charge, even when they're pushing back. So share a little bit more about that.
Well, because kids need leaders. They don't know. They don't have boundaries. If they don't have boundaries and guidelines, they're off the rails, right? Think of it like you get in an airplane and you've never flown a plane before, and someone goes, "Here, you fly it," and you're like, "What? What do I do? What or bus? Here, you drive the bus. I don't feel like driving today." And you're like, "I don't know what to do." Same thing with children. They need to feel safe.
Yeah.
They need to know you're the leader. You're showing them what to do. You're telling them what to do. That makes them feel safe and they trust you. And here's what I always say to parents: your job as a parent is to raise your child so they grow up to know how to, I call it, be in the world, to be in the world. Because if you don't teach them these things young, my mother used to say this all the time when I would irritate her: "You're in for a rude awakening, young lady, someday," right? So you have these kids who are a little wild, and now they're going up as adults, and nobody cares what they feel. Nobody cares what they think. You got a job, your boss isn't going to say, "Well, how do you feel about it?" They're going to go get the job done. And then you can't do it because you were never taught the skills. And I have a whole training I did, 10 foundational skills, or on my Facebook Live, 10 things that are really important your children need to know from a young age to help them grow up to be productive, responsible adults in our world that can function and not be overwhelmed because they weren't taught these things. And I'm seeing it all the time. I had one lady tell me, "Well, I hope by the time my child's an adult and he's working, his boss is going to be understanding and kind like this." And I'm like, that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. But let's get real here.
I know, but the reality is that's not going to happen. And when we coddle that and not allow them to experience what I call logical consequences, which
Correct.
is not punishment, it's what will happen when you violate the boundaries. There will be logical consequence. The consequence needs to fit the crime. And yes, we may need to get creative with what that is going to look like, but it's because we're setting the boundaries, and outside the boundaries, this is where it's not safe anymore, and we need to get back to that and teaching them what that is. And it really is the leadership. And Pam, you and I, we've talked about this before because we chatted before we even booked this podcast. But I've been very transparent that no one teaches us how to raise a human.
No.
And all we bring into it is exactly what you said. Well, my personality, how God wired me and what drives me, and how my mama parented me will be the way I parent my kids. And when that's not working, I'm still doing the same thing, louder, longer, harder, because that's all I know. That's all I know. And that's the trap that I got caught up in.
Right.
Because, and I was in a cycle with my kids of that yelling. Now I swatted a little bit of diapers, when they were little and they were defiant, but I also realized that was not effective, didn't change anything. So I really needed another approach. But I needed to change what I was doing, which is exactly what you're saying. Parents don't know what to do. And parents, let's be real. No one teaches you how to raise a human.
No.
I had this baby, I got the nursing under control, I got sleep schedules under control, and then their little personalities popped up. Okay. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening here? And that triggered me to react in the yelling, spanking, because that's all I knew. I needed new skills. So what you're sharing, and which is what I was really attracted to, was just that common sense expectation that we're not going to tolerate certain things here, and we need to squash that, because they will go out into the real world and find out it's going to cost them a heck of a lot more when you think you can barge in, speak disrespectfully, not be on time, not be accountable. Like, these are things that are really going to cost them in the long run. So parents, we're not helping. You need to lead by example of what you expect in the home that will be followed.
That brings up a good point, because you were saying how you yelled and screamed. So what you were teaching your children is to yell and scream.
Absolutely.
But when you were yelling, they were doing this.
I know. Yeah, one of them was. One of them was. And that's exactly what it was. Because if I was not firm and direct with Kyle, he didn't think I meant it. But the other two were more sensitive. And one is crying, and I'm not yelling at her. And the other one was doing this. And I'm sitting there thinking, you have created this mess.
Yes.
Because you have one kid who pushes your buttons. And I didn't quite know how to work with him. And so that is a whole nother story. But what I'm saying is I needed to change.
Exactly.
Kids are going to be kids. But you don't know unless we teach them.
Right. But you recognized it.
Yeah.
That you needed to change, that it wasn't working. And what happens so much is people get stuck in that cycle. Like you said, that's all they know. Now, I do have followers to reach out to me and go, I don't have a mom to teach me this. or I was raised in a toxic, abusive home. I don't know what to do,
Exactly.
or I have no support around me and I'm struggling. And can you help me? And which is why I do my reels every single day, because there are people. I mean, I have followers from all over the world, countries I've never even heard of. And guess what? Doesn't matter where you're from.
Right.
There's this consistent need across the board of people to say, tell me, show me, explain to me how I do this, because I don't know. And for me, it's basic, right? These are basic, I call them foundational skills that I was raised with, that I raised my children with. And I'm blown away that people don't know them. That's why I'm there every day, my face up on the social media. People get sick of seeing me, but I just feel there's like a need to do this.
It is. And you are doing an amazing job with these common sense approaches, because as I said, this was all I was doing was the same thing. And let me tell you where I got hung up with. I got hung up thinking that I was the only one. I hid behind the shame and the guilt that I could be successful in my career. I could do all these things, and I sucked as a parent. You know what I mean? But I didn't want anyone to know, so I keep up the facade on the front that everything is okay, when I was dying inside because I was really struggling with one, which was the domino that knocked down the others because of me not being able to be in control of my emotions and the way I dealt with a strong-willed, defiant little person. Right. But so let's talk about the long-term impact, about
that's interesting.
Setting those expectations and following through.
Okay, so this is really important. It's something I preach a lot on my reels. And I talk about, you have to have expectations for children. They need to know upfront what you expect, because how do you know? It's like you go for a new job and they give you a job description. And they tell you, here's what we expect you to do. Here's your responsibilities. Here are our policies. Here's what happens if you don't do your job. You could get fired, whatever. You know that up front. Well, your children need the same thing. They need to know what are the expectations and what are the consequences if I don't. Not that consequences are negative. Sometimes they're positive. So I'll give you an example. I had my 2 grandchildren with me, taking them into the store to buy something for Mother's Day. And they were like 4 and 6 at the time. And I explained to them before we left, here's the deal. You stick with me. You stay together. We don't argue, whatever. We get to the store. I repeat it again. And I said, now tell me what I said. And they repeated it back. So now they've heard it 3 times. Mm-hmm. Do you know when we went in that store? They were perfect. They did exactly like I asked them to do. They followed the rules. They followed all the expectations I had laid out and we had agreed to. And then after that, we came home and I got them a treat for doing it. I said, thank you. And I praised them. Thank you guys for following the rules. It makes it so much more pleasant to be out with you when you follow the rules. So I praised them for it and then gave them a little treat when we got home. Beautiful, easy peasy. If people do that, here's the expectations. It's when you don't tell children what you expect and or the consequences. And what you said, follow through is key.
It is.
And if you don't follow through, you must well kiss it goodbye. At one time.
I know. I see that. I see the fight and the struggle, and then they finally comply, and then they still get the reward. And I'm saying, no, that's not how that works, because they can pitch their fit and still get what they want. And that's
but parents do like ridiculous. You're grounded for a month. Well, really, I mean, don't say that if you're not going to follow through, because now you're going to go back to the child and go, okay, a couple of days, okay, never mind. Now the child learns you don't mean what you say.
I know.
And they don't have to trust that what you say is the truth.
Right. Absolutely.
And kids are manipulative. Let's be real here. Even the best of kids, right? They're sneaky. They're manipulative. They'll see what they can get away with. You have to be one step ahead of them. Yeah. And you have to know, and they have to know, when I say something, I mean it. And you don't have to like it, but that's the way it's going to be. And it's not mean. It's not hateful. It's just what it is. It's like if you're driving down the road and you're speeding, you get a ticket. If the police, it's too bad. You don't have to like it, but you're going to get one because you broke the rules.
That's right.
Consequences, simple. Yeah.
And one of the things I had to learn with my personality, because I'm very high energy and I can shoot at the mouth and then I got to clean up the mess, is that I needed to pause.
Yes.
I needed to pause and say, what's really going on here? And what is going to be the most effective approach? Because I used to shoot and then clean up the mess. And then I'm realizing that either now I got to follow through on something I said because I was in the emotion. And if I don't follow through, then I've lost all authority. Right?
Correct.
Or I take that moment to say, what's really happening? What is the root of what's happening? And how can I approach this in
Right.
a way that's going to get a better outcome and maintain that relationship of trust and mutual respect. And so, but for me and my personality, that wasn't natural for me. Parents, this is what I'm telling you. We need to become aware of what's driving us and
Mhm.
how we need to get in control of our next step in doing that. And it really is, I love when you said about with the grandkids that you explained to them what the expectation was, but you asked for them to repeat it back to you. I've done that same
Right.
thing because what we said and what they heard could be totally different.
Bingo. I wanted to tell you when you said about you had to get control of yourself, like to before you reacted. So I just did a Facebook Live about this yesterday, and I taught parents some techniques to do because as parents, we see something happening in the moment, we jump in, and we want to right away handle it. But sometimes that gets your emotions up, and you get angry and get frustrated. And so I try to teach my daughter. She will just go to her kids, stop. I need 5 seconds. Just stop. And she breathe. And they stop. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh. And that's how she handled it. And it worked beautifully.
Yeah. And it is just the pause. The pause for me was to get a handle of my emotions because
Yes.
I could feel it building and I'm gonna, my head's gonna blow off. But I also knew that when I overreacted, and this is what was happening, I'm yelling at them and they're yelling back at me. And I'm saying, you can't talk to me that way, but I'm talking to them that way. Right. So this was some of the lessons that I learned along the way that I am modeling everything. So
Perfect.
then I hear my oldest yelling at the middle one because mom yells at him. So, I mean, I had created a hot mess. I just want people to know that just because this is what I do doesn't mean I had it all together. It means I had a lot of learning to do, but I knew I needed to change. And that's where parents are right now. We may feel as though we're on this journey and we're into this journey and realizing it's not working. Either we're living in conflict with our kids or we're feeling the frustration that we don't have the relationships we want. We spend every day directing and correcting every stinking little thing they do. And we're not really enjoying the relationship and that we desire to have with our kids to just have a wonderful, loving household because we've not set that up. I realized that I was responsible for the outcome of this and I needed better skills. And so that's why I love what you do because it is practical, common sense, but if you've not modeled that, you may not know. Another thing, Pam, that you share is because your stuff may feel firm. I call it lovingly firm with what you say. And there are some of those who are coming from the general parenting that still feels that that is too harsh. But then I go back and ask them, so how is your approach working?
Thank you. Because here's what happens. I feel, this is my opinion. And on my platform, I welcome opposing opinions. I say, when I'm Switzerland, you can tell me exactly how you feel. I may not agree. Like, I don't agree with spanking. A lot of my followers do. That's fine. You be you. You parent how you want to parent. But here's what I'm finding today. Parents are talking at their children way too much. Children don't want to hear it. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Here's what you need to do. Let's get it wrapped up. Let's do it. And you can do that lovingly and kind, but I'm the parent. I'm not the friend. Now, I'm friends with my children now. They're all adults, right? I'm friends with them. But when they're little, I'm the parent. I'm in charge. They don't have to like it. I'm sorry. I have more life experience than you do. I'm in charge. It's my job. And parenting is the toughest job you will ever do, hands down. Anyway, I don't care what anybody tells you. Because once you have a baby, it's lifelong. It doesn't go away. Even when they're adults and not in your house anymore. But you have to be the one in charge. You have to lead. You have to model. You have to teach. Not always easy, not always fun. But I'm asking my children how they feel about it. I don't care how they feel about it, right? Not being hateful and mean. I don't really care. I'm your mother. I asked you to do something. You need to go and do it. Thank you. That's it. And a story and a discussion. And I mean, if my kid said something smart to me, I go, excuse me, who do you think you're talking to? I'm your mother. You don't speak to me that way. And from the time they're young, you start teaching them. That's disrespectful. I'm not tolerating that. I had someone tell me the other day that their husband said something to them disrespectful. And I turned around and said, is there somebody behind me? Because I know you're not talking to me that way. And he was like, because he was raised speaking disrespectfully and got away with it. Right. She's like, tolerate it. So there's the difference. And that's why we're seeing teachers leaving the field.
Yeah.
Left. We're seeing people can't find workers because young kids come up and they don't show up for work,
Right.
or they don't have the work ethic. They don't know how to handle. They get too much anxiety because they were not taught how to be resilient.
Yes.
And the results of all of this, and there's got to be. I think what happens, the pendulum went from here
Yep.
to here,
Exactly.
and we need to get back here in the common sense.
Yeah,
Story.
I'm right there with you. And there is so much of that anxiety and depression. And I think it's because we're not teaching the resilience and the coping skills. I'll tell you, my daughter's a dancer. She danced her whole life. She started dancing at the age of 3, and her very first recital. I mean, and we are all geeked up for her 3-year-old recital. You know how it is when you're itty bitties. And she says, I don't want to go. I don't feel good.
Yeah, right.
And it was anxiety. It was, she's going to the performance, everything that we worked for. And I wasn't going to say, okay, we'll stay home. It's like, I understand, it's all the excitement about being on stage, and we'll be right there, and look for mommy, and I'll be there, and I'll wave to you. But we have to let them feel. There were times in her life, and a couple of my kids really struggled with depression and anxiety. And it's teaching them the coping skills, not pulling back, but
Exactly.
teaching them that step by step they can get through it and look back and say, I did this.
Exactly.
There were times that I had to go through some very difficult times because I could see the panic attacks, the overwhelm. I can't breathe, but I can't use that as an excuse. My goal is to either get them the support or work with them for them to realize that step by step you will get through it. And when you do, you can accomplish
Right.
what you thought was so difficult, and you would be able to get through.
That's perseverance. That's resilience.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
so many things you're teaching them. And I find today people try to rescue their children from everything.
Helicopter parenting. Yeah.
Right. They want to fix everything.
Yes.
They don't. I had one lady say to me, I don't want my child to ever be unhappy. And I'm like, well, that's not realistic. Your child's going to be unhappy, and you need to teach them how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because other people are going to care if your child's happy. You think the teacher does, or their boss. Like, seriously, get real. And, I've heard some bizarre stories of people telling me moms are going with their children to apply for jobs and showing up with them at college for interviews. And I'm like, what? Have we gone crazy as a society?
Now, it's not like when my kids didn't do interviews that I didn't drive them and sit in the car because they were, and it's not like even when my daughter, I remember my daughter was in a middle college, and so she's 16 on a college campus, and she needed to meet with professors twice a month. And that anxiety, again, I told you she was the anxious girl, right? Just going in to talk to a professor. And I went with her and I sat on the bench outside the building, as moral support. And then she came down and she's like, oh, they were so nice. But see, if I didn't sit there and hold her accountable, would she have gone? Would she have told me she's gone? I don't know what she would have done, but to lean in and say, yeah, it's going to be hard, but they're human just like you. They're really nice people, and for her to come. And then the next one, she was fine to go. But so many times they feel the anxiety and then they bail and they never get through and see that it was all going to be okay anyway. And we are lacking that accountability.
But it's because you rescue them from everything. You fix every problem they had. And I just did a reel about this, about if your child forgets their lunch, don't take it.
I didn't.
They're not going to starve it. Oh, girl, that's abuse. You're like Frank. You're going to end up in jail. I'm like, get a grip on yourself. Your child probably had breakfast at home, forgot their lunch, which was their responsibility. Now they forgot their lunch. Oh, well, I literally had moms say that I would call Uber Eats. I would call DoorDash. I would make sure because if they didn't, they would starve. And it would learning for the afternoon. And
First of all, they're bumming food off their friends, okay? And second of all, they're going to be really hungry when they get home for dinner. I mean, that's the logical consequence. And I've dealt with that same thing. And I work from home. And so my kids would think if they forgot something, I could bring it. And I'm not saying I didn't do that a couple times until I started to see a pattern here. I am not teaching you to be responsible that you forgot your flute, or you forgot your trumpet, or you forgot your homework on the counter. I mean, just, oh, wow. That's the problem solving. What are you going to do? Want a couple of suggestions? Sure, it's going to all work out for you. I'll collaborate with you, but I'm not bailing you out.
My kids got one time. I would take because I live, maybe 10 minutes from the school, and so I would run down my daughter. Oh, I forgot my soccer plate. Just okay, one time. But after that, it's like, oh well, guess what? You don't practice because you. Sorry, that's real life.
Figure it out. Yep. And this is, I think, the like you said, that parents don't want their children to feel the pain. I mean, I know when the homework, was missing and they were going to take a zero or get less credit, I didn't feel good about that. That was not my fault. I can't own that. So that's when it'd be like, so what is a strategy we can do to ensure that it gets to the backpack? Like, how do we problem solve that? Let's have a homework folder that when you're done the homework, it goes automatically to the folder to be sure that it gets back to school. Like, we had to set up systems for that to happen, and not the long lectures. And if you listen and you're not get more organized, blah, blah, blah. How can I help you with that? And that's, again, teaching a skill to be more organized with these. Pam, these are just some wonderful. I am just so happy to have met you. I'm so happy to have been able to share this, with our audience. And I'd like, before we sign off, what are some of, if you could just give us, one last tip to remember, because I'm sure there's a big umbrella and all the other things under it. But if we were to just sum it up as to why this is so important.
Okay. Well, first of all, my tip is you're the parent, be the parent. Period. That's it. You are the parent. You need to be the parent. And the reason why you need to be the parent is you want your children to grow up to be, like I say, contributing, responsible, independent members of society. And if you don't do your job from the time they're young as a parent, you can't go back and fix that when they're adults. You can't. You may have a chance when they're coming up a little bit. Once they're out in that world and they're adults and they're out of your house, you cannot fix that. And now you are responsible for that. Now, let me just back this up and say, we raise our kids to do the right thing. That doesn't mean they always did. However, if they don't have those basic foundational skills that you were responsible for teaching them and you neglected for whatever reason, that's on you as the parent.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. It's on you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I often say. We get one shot at this.
Right.
And we are not prepared. As I shared before, I have my education, I got certifications and all these things to excel in my career. And I struggled as a parent. And I'll be honest with you, did I once think that I should get some help? No, because I was led to believe that I should know how to do this. And when I wasn't doing it well, I hid behind the shame and the guilt that I wasn't doing it well, because I didn't want anyone to know that I was failing. And it was a terrible place to be, parents. It's a terrible place to be. And there are so many opportunities for support that, Pam, we didn't have, you and I.
We had none.
We didn't have Google. We didn't have YouTube video. We didn't have any of that. We were on our own. And not that I didn't read the books, not that I didn't go to the workshops, but to apply what I was learning when push came to shove, I was right back to the miserable Karen that I was, And so I had a lot to learn. And so parents, please tap into Pam's wisdom and advice. And I'm going to leave the link to her website, Pam in the Pocket. Tell us a little bit about this new app, because I think this is going to be an incredible resource for families.
It's an ebook I wrote. So I wrote an ebook. It's called Common Sense Parenting. It's 75 quick fix tips for real life behavior challenges. And it's like, you go to it, you're at it. So the reason I call it Pam in My Pocket, that's a whole collection I'm going to start. So you buy the ebook, you download it to your phone. You're in the store, your child's having a tantrum. You go, boom, table of contents, hit tantrum. One page, why it's happening, what to do, what not to do, boom. Within minutes, not even, you can read this and respond. Then you hit the button at the bottom, takes you right back to the table of contents. So it's 75 solutions to behavior challenges. And the reason I wrote it was because people are asking me all the time. And you don't have time everyone's like, attention spans are like this, so it has to be quick and sweet and short. And that's what this book is. And then I'm starting the Pam Show on YouTube because people see my reels. And in my reels, I will say I'm very direct. People say you're bossy. I'm like, no, I just tell it like it is. You don't have to like it. Again, you don't have to like it, but here it is. And people I find that are the ones that probably need it the most, who it's like pushing back a little bit. And they're like, oh, that I see myself in that a little bit maybe. But the Pam Show is going to be time for me to expand on what I'm saying in a 60-second reel. Because people say, show me, tell me, explain in detail. That's what I'm going to do on the show.
Yeah. Break it down a little bit more.
A little bit.
Oh my gosh. Well, Pam, I want to thank you so much for your time fitting into your schedule and sharing your wisdom with our listeners. And those of you who have enjoyed this episode, please like and share and get in touch with Pam. I'm going to leave the link to her website where you can find all of her resources. follow her. And she's got, I've been following her on LinkedIn, but she's on Facebook as well for just some quick tips. And it really is, Pam, in following you, I feel as though it starts to shift the mindset. It just starts to shift. When you hear enough of it, you'll start to lean a little bit further to that center. Okay.
I followers who comment and say, you know what, I did that and it worked.
Yes.
Thank you. Or I'm trying these things and I'm seeing it's effective. And wow, who knew?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I don't know if it's going to work. And every child and every family is not the same.
I know it.
Works for one, and you know this, and I know that. I can work and work for the other. So you really go to parenting toolkit. You have to have that, like, you know, the carpenters, they have the belts, the construction workers. You have to have all kinds of tools in that sucker because you don't know what's going to happen, what you have to fix, right? So
That's exactly it. And that's the approach that we come from as well. That my kids didn't come with a manual, and if they did, they'd all be different. And that's why we developed parenting blueprint so that we can parent them according to their design. But the principles you share are tried and true, common sense parenting
right.
principles. So
because what I did with my children. And here's the deal. People go, well, what do you know? Well, I have 46 years of parenting. I know what I did wrong. I know what I did right. I've seen my children grow up, become adults and have children of their own. I see what works. I'm not just pulling this out of my hat. This is real life experience.
yes. Yeah.
That's all.
And what I find in the clients that I've worked with is that change is hard.
Oh,
And that what they have done has gotten them to where they are. But if they're not happy with where they are, you can't keep doing it and think it's going to change. Something needs to change, and it starts with us. And so I knew that I had to go back and repair and restore, so that I had to have different effective strategies when things happened, because the way I was handling it before was not effective. And so you're starting to move the needle. And the more you do it, and this is what happens as we go through coaching, it becomes just part of who you are, and you don't even remember who that person was. Because now you've gained skills and strategies. As you're saying, your listeners are getting success. And it's like, well, what else do you have? And so you're going to move the needle. We are going to be making a difference, I'm telling you. And it's not just for parents to feel as though they have better and healthier relationships at home. What you touched on is what I'm very passionate about as well, is helping educators be able to teach. Because when parents can parent, teachers can teach. And parents, I am not being hard on you, because I was the worst. I really, really struggled because I just didn't know. And so if I didn't know what to do and kept doing the same thing, I was getting the same results. And I just needed to figure this out. And what Pam is saying with all the experience, we've got kids in their 40s. I'm a blended family, 7 kids, you know what I mean? So been through a lot. And it's not that I had it perfect. I don't want to feel like I'm preaching to anybody, but I learned what worked and what didn't work. And so if you can learn from us wisdom ladies as to what not to do, you'll get there a lot quicker, So.
I one of these gray hairs on my head.
Right. Yes. Oh, again, Pam, thank you so much. I hope you'd enjoy this episode. Like I said, like and share. And I look forward to seeing you again on another episode with Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. We'll see you next time.